It's 4 degrees outside. I'm finna hit it. My 5-mile walk. I'm just pointing out that it's 4 degrees. The wind chill is basically, let's say 9 degrees below zero in Waukegan, but we in the far south side, so it's around the same. Oh, -5 wind chill at O'Hare. So we hovering around a -2 degrees wind chill. But yeah, I'm about to hit it. 5 miles. Let's do it. Walk with me. Talk with me. Free your mind with Big G. Hey, everybody. It's another edition of 5K. 5K walk. Chicago streets. South side, baby. Stand up. It's me, your roving neighborhood reporter, Big G. I want to highlight that it's February the 14th, and it's a wind chill factor 2 below zero. I'm finna walk 5 miles in this, and you gonna walk with me. I got on plenty of clothes. I'm used to doing this, but I'm bringing you along. I'm bringing y'all along. That's the only thing different. So I'm bringing y'all with me. I've been doing this. Lost a lot of weight. Proud of myself. Should be a beautiful walk. Great, crisp air. Nice and crisp air. I want to talk about today. I want to talk about voting. Let's talk about voting. I'm going to vaguely talk about voting. I'm not going to talk about nobody in particular. May end up doing that, but I'm going to start off talking about our voting habits or lack thereof, our voting tendencies. Now, the reason I'm talking about it is because it's important. You know, I'm going to take my time because I can. Got basically an hour to talk about it, and we could touch on a lot of topics, so that's what I'm going to do. The first thing I'm going to touch on is the skepticism of the authenticity of the voting process. What I mean by that is, I'm sure some viewers is, oh man, voting, man, it don't work. Voting is fake. You know, I'm just sharing with you all the things that I've heard. First, I've heard our vote doesn't count, which I could understand. You could imagine how a person feels like, you know, one vote out of millions doesn't count. But like I've said in other videos about other things, the information still applies. If it's a fact about one thing, it's a fact about all things that's associated with it. For example, it takes something small to equal something big. If you're trying to build a large building, It start off with one little bitty brick, and then another, and so on and so forth. So you have a little thing that turns into a large thing. So that's a direct relation to voting. For those of you who say my one vote don't count, one vote, then another vote, then another and another. Next thing you know, you got millions of votes. For those who say the process is fake, I would say it's pretty apparent that they checking votes somewhere. So, I mean, all of the pomp and circumstance that they go through for election, that would indicate that, you know, when you go in that polling booth and you choose whoever it is you choose for whatever election you choose, whatever election it is, the police kind of took my breath because they, you know, I got a video on over policing. Like, we are, as a community, we're over policed. So, you know, no, they're not solving crime. They stopping the residents that are already victims because the crime that's taking place in the community. So the crime is rampant. I'm giving you an example of what I go through. The crime, something happens. Let's get all the way specific. Something happens. Somebody gets shot. Boom, 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 boom. You hear several shots. And then you wait probably 30 minutes. Then the police respond. When they know, well, I mean, I don't know if this is the theory, but it appears that they, you know, they just, I guess they take their time coming, but the culprit is definitely long gone. And 30 minutes later, here they come pulling me over, talking about there was a shooting and we're investigating, you know. Yeah, you look suspicious with the groceries. You was coming out the garage and you had a handful of groceries, so we wanted to make sure that you weren't the what? Like, that has literally happened to me. Or I'm driving down the street and police pull me over and they say, you fit the description. And I'm in the car. But that's a whole nother, you know, which it kind of relates to this because voting leads to legislating, which leads to laws, which leads to laws being applied to you as an individual. So they kind of go hand in hand. But where was I in the video? I was pointing out how voting is small, and something small, it takes a lot of small things to equal something big. So the people who say voting is fake, it don't, like I've heard that in our community, like, oh, that's not even real. Which, I mean, when I go vote, you know, they do a great job in faking it because I get a little piece of paper to say I voted. You know, you go in the booth, they collect the ballot, you know, the whole. So, I mean, until we could prove that it's not working, I'm going to positively partake in what's set up, even though it's all type of things going on behind the scenes, like voter suppression, which is a thing. Voter suppression is a thing. An example of voter suppression is when you get to your voting location, they ask you for four pieces of ID. And who carries, even people who's going to vote, who carries 4 different pieces of ID? Or they will have a very incompetent person taking care of the process and just making all type of errors, which in essence voids our vote. It nullifies our vote. So, I mean, I understand the skepticism in the whole process. You know, people from our community, that's all I could talk about. That's all I choose to talk about. People from our community have lost confidence in a lot of things. That's where senseless violence comes from. If you don't believe things that's being told to you, or if things aren't panning out, then you take matters into your own hand. I mean, I would hope an individual would push come to shove, do whatever they had to do to eat. But we talking about the voting process, and that contributes, that lends to you eating or not. Start with the alderman. If you vote an alderman in who says he's for cutting social services, then he or she is gonna do everything they can to cut said social services. That's just an example. Versus if you choose or elect an alderman who is fair, who wants to help, who understands what's at stake, you vote him or her in, and then they represent you properly. You know, that's a small example of voting and what the benefits of voting. Hey, what's up? The benefits of voting. So, you know, but I want to get deeper into some systemic things regarding voting that's in our community. Systemic, I mean, what do I mean by systemic? I mean, like, so let's just take this video for example. I'm sure the minute I mention voting, and this is typically an older person's mentality, because, you know, I know some young people that's very abreast, very involved, and I haven't really heard a lot of this sentiment in the young community. You know, I'm gonna say 30 and younger. What's up, man? 30 and younger. They don't share the sentiment like our seniors or our older cats who basically say, what's up, man?
Good morning, sir.
Who basically say, talking about who you vote for is taboo. Now, I understand on a degree that, you know, your vote is personal. Who you decide to support is personal. I get that part. But the part I don't get, which is a thing in our community, a system that has been placed in our community, and that is, we don't even talk about politics at all. Like, it's taboo, it's forbidden, it's inappropriate to talk about voting, to talk about election process, your decisions, and how you conclude your decisions. So the reason I'm pointing that out is we in bad shape legislatively. You know, based on the laws that's made and applied, and all these things come from government. So if we are electing officials, if we are electing politicians, if we are electing representatives, and we don't even discuss it, we don't have to discuss who we voting for. But we could discuss the candidates' traits, the things you heard them say, the things I heard them say, how authentic they are or appear to be. You know, we could talk about those things and have a clear understanding. How you doing? Have a clearer understanding. You know, we think we clear on our own decision, which, depending on how much research you did, that could determine how clear of a vote or how clear your decision is when you vote. But what about sharing that information? You know, what about sharing that information with somebody that might not know? So see, those become the things that in our community is ridiculous. You know, I'm gonna give you a scenario. I used to work for DCP, Developing Community Projects. And that was an organization that was spearheaded by Barack Obama before he was president to address the needs of the community through parenting. It was called PLAN, Parent Leadership Action Network. So I was one of the managers, oversaw 50 parents, and when I would bring up in different settings who we voting for, why we voting for whoever, I was met with some mean mugs and cold stares like, "Excuse me, young man, do you know that?" Like, you know, ladies was, you know, some elderly ladies that worked there, and they was pretty involved, you know. They taught us how to organize block clubs and different things like that. These was the older people. So when I brought it to their attention in terms of, hey, let's have a discussion about voting and who should we vote for and why, or why should we vote for, you know, the lady was like, it was a group of them. You imagine on on one of the Friday movies where Craig and Day was security, and they was talking to the old ladies that was they was out soliciting. She was like, "Don't you push me." But anyway, just that's the type of group that I was dealing with, you know, 3 or 4 elderly ladies that's really involved in their community. So I'm thinking this is a great opportunity as a leader to kind of get some understanding about who we should and shouldn't vote for. And at the time, it was Barack Obama was being considered for his first candidacy, I believe, I want to say. But anyway, we voted. We talking, and I bring up, hey, so who should we vote for? And the ladies was like, you know, Marcus, that's really inappropriate. And I'm talking about they was adamant, you know. These ladies didn't have nothing. They wasn't playing with me, you know. They was serious about everything, which I respected and appreciated, you know. So that's how I governed everything, very seriously. Hey, these people, they from the community, and they not playing with their ideas and thoughts and their beliefs. They serious about that. So I'm as serious, if not more serious, you know. So she straight let me have it. Like, that's inappropriate. That's inappropriate for you to bring up the discussion of who we voting for. So I had heard this already. You know, I had understood that this was a thing, but I never understood why. I'm always a questioner. You should always question everything. If somebody, if you meet somebody and they want you to just take their word for it, you need to get away from them because they like a cult or something that's not good for you. But if you meet somebody that's sharing information with you, it's good information, and then when you do your research on that said information, it's confirmed, and they encourage you to research, they encourage you to vet their information, that's a great leader. Because don't take my word for it. Lord, have mercy on my soul. It's too cold out here. See this, and this laws affect us. This lady out here. I'm just pointing it out. I'm not exploiting my sister because I can't help her at this moment. So I gotta keep moving. That's another thing you gotta learn. But that's an example of voting a politician in, not understanding their views or standpoints, their mission, and then they get in and they close down a mental health facility, or they close down senior living facilities, or they cut the funds for that, which that leads to closure. That's how that go. You got a person that's not affected by anybody mentally, not directly, nor does he have an elderly person that's in need making the decision about a mental health hospital or a senior living facility. That's just one example. So you don't know what this guy or this gal, this man or this lady's views are about these topics that affect you, but you go in the voting booth and you just pull the lever, or you just punch a hole or make an X or however you vote, and you vote because you don't know what's going on. You just voting for whoever, who got on a nice suit or who got the best slogan, you know? No, we got to vote for the person who said, I'm going to help with mental health care. And then when they say it to us, we hold them to that because we can. We're their constituents. They're our constituents. We're partners in this, from my understanding. So when I vote said politician in, and they say, hey, I'm all for health care, mental health care, and I'm all for senior living facilities. And then I'm walking down the street and I see the lady like I just seen with pajama pants on in front of Walgreens, trying to create an opportunity for herself. That's an example of trying to create an opportunity for yourself. Now, it might be ridiculous to some people because why is she standing out there in the cold? That's her opportunity. That's the maximum of her opportunity window. So senseless violence is not so senseless. I have a video on it, and I'm gonna do a part 2 on it because I got a lot more to say. But I already have a senseless violence video where I explain how violence is not so senseless. Look it up. But yeah, so we vote a person in. They tell us that they're for mental health care. And then I witnessed that. Hey, I could pick up my phone and say, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Alderman, Mr. or Mrs. State Rep, Mr. or Mrs. Politician, period. I voted you in based on your beliefs about mental health care and elderly health care, and I'm seeing people that need help mentally and elderly people that need help in my community. So, A, what did you do to back up what you said? And B, how can I help these people take advantage of that? So the minute that person, that politician, can't produce those results, we can collectively as constituents say, hey, we want you out because you lied to get the position. Now, if you go to work, if you go apply for a job and you do all this lying to get it, you might get the job. But once we found out you lied, we, meaning the employer, once they found out you lied, you best believe you out of here. You're fired. So why are politicians any different? You know, whether you're Republican or Democrat, independent, or none of the above. Who you voted for, you intend, you expect them, him or her, you expect them to continue to be honest with you. We said we was gonna support mental health care facilities, but you're not. So we as constituents can confront you and say, hey, we're gonna give you X amount of days to fulfill your campaign promises, you know, or we're gonna get rid of you. And then they'll start, you know, there'll become more accountability in the political process. But right now, there's no accountability. I'm sorry, baby. I had to do it. It's freezing out here. Y'all hear the snow? This our community. Nobody shovel. Cause we dealing with other stuff. Shoveling, I ain't even got time to shovel. I gotta get out here and create an opportunity for myself because the opportunities don't exist. So I gotta make one, you know. Oh, just go get a job. No, it's not that easy. So when we in a room together, it's okay. This here's the moral of my conversation. Here's where I'm trying to get. Let's start having a discussion about who we gonna vote for and why. Or let's have a discussion who we not voting for and why. You know, if you want to feed into, see, cause I move around logically. I follow what makes sense. So if a political position is very important, if who holds this position is very important, right? Then we should discuss it. If who holds this position is important, then we should discuss who we should and shouldn't vote for. That makes sense to me. That's a logical thing, you know? But for some reason, it's been planted in our community. It's understood that word taboo. I don't have a video on taboo, but I'm going to create a video on the things that are taboo in our community to highlight some of these systemic things that we probably don't even think about, that's negative, that's affecting us negatively, that's a detriment to us, it's hurting us, you know, like the very thing I'm talking about, that's voting. Now this is not a taboo topic video, but I will have a video that's going to talk about all the taboo things in our community. You know, I'm gonna highlight it, I'm gonna decode that so we can see how systematically we just in feeding into things that's derived and placed in front of us